The fire inside started on her 15th birthday, not the warm glow of youth, but the burning that would consume her life for the next decade. In the quiet town of UMO, where gossip traveled faster than the morning breeze, lived a young woman named whose beauty captivated everyone who crossed her path. With her radiant smile and gentle demeanor, she was the kind of person who could brighten even the gloomiest day. Yet behind her enchanting exterior, carried a burden that weighed heavily on her heart, a medical condition that consumed her life and filled her with shame. Parents, respected members of the community, couldn't understand why their daughter remained unmarried. Such beauty shouldn't go to waste, her mother would say during their Sunday dinners, while her father nodded in agreement. But would only offer a polite smile, keeping her secret locked away in the depths of her heart. In this struggle, found solace in two friends, Uso and Ken. Uso was like the sister she never had, offering unwavering support and a shoulder to cry on during her darkest moments. Ken, on the other hand, harbored a darkness beneath her friendly exterior, a jealousy that grew with each passing day, feeding on Worm's every success and happiness. Life took an unexpected turn when literally bumped into Chima outside the local cafe. Coffee spilled, apologies were exchanged, and in that moment something magical happened. Chima wasn't like the others who were merely captivated by her beauty. He saw beyond her perfect exterior, making her laugh with his terrible jokes and listening intently when she spoke about her dreams. For the first time in her life, felt hope blooming in her heart. Chima's love made her feel normal, accepted, even though she still couldn't bring herself to share her secret with him. Their romance blossomed like spring flowers, leading to a proposal that brought tears of joy to eyes. But Ken watched from the shadows, her heart twisted with envy. While Uso helped plan her wedding with genuine excitement, Ken plotted in silence. The friendship that once seemed unbreakable was about to shatter in the most devastating way. The town of UMO had never seen a more beautiful bride than on her wedding day. The church bells rang, flowers adorned every corner, and love filled the air. Yet beneath her veil, trembled with fear not of marriage, but of her secret being discovered. She didn't know that Ken had already set in motion a plan that would expose everything she had tried so hard to hide. Standing before their friends and family, and Chima were ready to begin their life together. The town square buzzed with excitement, and even the skeptics couldn't deny the love that radiated between them. But as they stood at the altar, hands clasped and hearts full of hope, none could have predicted the storm that was about to break, a betrayal that would test not only their love, but also the true meaning of friendship, forgiveness, and healing in the quiet town of UMO. In the heart of UMO, reputation preceded her like a whispered legend. Her beauty wasn't just in her delicate features or the way sunlight seemed to dance in her eyes, it was in the kindness that radiated from her smile, the gentle way she spoke to elderly neighbors, and how she always had time to help children find their lost pets. Men from neighboring towns would make excuses to visit UMO, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman whose beauty had become almost mythical. Every week brought new suitors to her door, each carrying grander promises than the last. Wealthy merchants offered exotic gifts, doctors promised lifelong comfort, and even a prince from a distant land had sent his emissary. Would receive them all with grace, but invariably each would leave with their hopes dashed, never understanding why such a perfect woman remained unmarried. But perfection, as knew all too well, was merely an illusion. Behind closed doors she battled demons that no one could see. Since her 15th birthday, a strange fire had awakened within her, a burning desire that consumed her thoughts and dominated her existence. It wasn't love she sought, it was something more primal, more desperate, a need that couldn't be satisfied by any single companion. The shame of her condition ate at her soul like acid. During the day she maintained her facade of the town's beloved beauty, but nights brought torment. She would pace her room fighting against urges that seemed to grow stronger with each passing year. The respectable men who sought her hand in marriage could never understand how could she explain that one man would never be enough. Only two people knew the depth of struggle, her best friends Uso and Ken. They became her confidants during those dark nights when the weight of her secret became too heavy to bear alone. Uso would hold her as she cried, promising that someday they would find a solution. Ken would listen silently, offering comforting words while something darker stirred behind her sympathetic smile. Daily life became a carefully choreographed dance of appearances and secrets. She developed an elaborate system of excuses and careful timing, meeting different men in secret, always ensuring her reputation remained intact. But each encounter left her feeling more hollow, more desperate, more ashamed. She would return home to stare at herself in the mirror, wondering how someone so blessed on the outside could be so cursed within. The toll of her double life showed in subtle ways: the slight tremor in her hands when refusing another marriage proposal, the shadows under her eyes that even the best makeup couldn't hide, the way she flinched when her mother spoke of finding the perfect husband. Yet to the outside world she remained the beautiful, the untouchable, the mysterious woman who could have anyone but chose to have no one. Little did anyone suspect that behind the perfect facade lay a story of desperation, shame, and a young woman's struggle against desires she never asked for and couldn't control. The day met Chima began like any other, with her seeking refuge in the small cafe at the corner of Maple Street. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee usually provided temporary relief from her constant inner turmoil. But that morning, as she hurried through the door lost in thought, she collided with a stranger. Her coffee splashed across his crisp white shirt, creating a masterpiece of brown stains. "I'm so sorry," exclaimed, mortified by her clumsiness. But instead of anger, she was met with a warm chuckle. Looking up, she found herself staring into the kindest eyes she'd ever seen. They belonged to a man who introduced himself as Chima, and his smile held no trace of the usual hunger she saw in men's eyes. "No worries," he said, dabbing at his shirt with a napkin. "Though I have to say, this is the most interesting way anyone's ever tried to get my attention." His playful tone made laugh, a genuine laugh she hadn't experienced in years. What started as an accidental coffee spill blossomed into hours of conversation. For the first time in her life, found herself talking about everything except her beauty. Chima asked about her dreams, her fears, her favorite books. He listened with genuine interest, challenging her thoughts with intelligent questions that made her see the world differently. As weeks turned into months, discovered something remarkable. When she was with Chima, the burning inside her seemed less intense. His presence brought a different kind of warmth, one that filled her heart rather than consumed it. Yet her condition didn't disappear entirely, and she still found herself seeking out other men, each encounter now followed by waves of guilt that threatened to drown her. Their relationship deepened despite internal struggles. Chima showed her parts of life she'd never experienced: the joy of early morning walks, the excitement of planning future adventures, the comfort of simply sitting in silence together. He made her laugh with terrible jokes and held her when she cried, never pressing for explanations she couldn't give. When Chima proposed on a starlit evening in the town square, heart soared and sank simultaneously. His words were everything she dreamed of. "You're not just beautiful, you're kind, intelligent, and strong. I want to spend my life discovering all the wonderful things that make you who you are." Tears streamed down her face as she said yes. In that moment, she allowed herself to believe that love could be stronger than her affliction. With trembling hands, she accepted the ring, its diamond catching the streetlight like a promise of hope. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Also helped her choose flowers and dresses, while Ken offered suggestions with an enthusiasm that didn't quite reach her eyes. Threw herself into planning, hoping that if she created the perfect wedding, she could become the perfect wife Chima deserved. But at night, alone with her thoughts, wondered if she was building her happiness on a foundation of lies. Could she really keep her secret forever? Was it fair to bind Chima to a life with someone who carried such a dark burden? The wedding day dawned with perfect promise. Stood before the mirror in her bridal suite, her white dress gleaming like fresh snow, while Uso carefully adjusted her veil. Outside, the wedding hall buzzed with excitement as UMO's most eligible bachelorette prepared to finally say "I do." Even constant inner fire seemed subdued by the joy of the moment. But fate and Ken had other plans. Just as and Chima stood before the altar, their hands intertwined and hearts full of hope, the large projection screen behind them flickered to life. At first, people thought it was a planned tribute video. Then the gasps began. The sounds that filled the hall weren't those of celebration. They were intimate moments had desperately tried to hide, played out in grainy detail for all to see. Froze, her bouquet slipping from nerveless fingers. The faces of her past indiscretions flashed across the screen one after another, each image another nail in the coffin of her happiness. She felt Chima's hand withdraw from hers, saw the color drain from his face as understanding dawned in his eyes. "Is this?" he whispered, but couldn't finish the question. Reached for him, but he stepped back, his expression a mixture of horror and heartbreak. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the hall, leaving standing alone before their shocked guests. The silence that followed was deafening. Could feel hundreds of eyes boring into her, could hear the whispers starting like poison spreading through the crowd. Her parents sat frozen in the front row, her mother's face buried in her hands. When finally found her voice to call after Chima, it came out as a broken sob. She ran after him, her wedding dress catching on the steps, but by the time she reached the parking lot, his car was already disappearing around the corner. Collapsed there on the asphalt, her pristine white dress gathering dirt and oil stains, a perfect metaphor for her ruined fairy tale. The days that followed were a blur of darkness. Barely left her bed, eating only when Yusuf forced her to. Meanwhile, Ken made her move, approaching Chima with sympathy and understanding, offering comfort in his time of confusion. But Chima, still reeling from the betrayal, wanted nothing to do with anyone connected to It was Uso who finally broke through depression, arriving one morning with information about a specialist who treated conditions like hers. "You need help," Uso said firmly, not judgment. The card she handed bore the name of a doctor who specialized in compulsive behavioral disorders. The first therapy session was the hardest thing had ever done. Harder than watching Chima walk away, harder than facing the town's whispers. But as she began to understand her condition, to learn that she wasn't alone and that treatment was possible, something inside her began to heal. Each session brought new insights, new tools for managing her urges, and slowly, painfully, began to reclaim control of her life. And all the while, unknown to Ken's guilt grew with each failed attempt to capture Chima's attention, her betrayal weighing heavier with each passing day. 3 months into her therapy, received a letter that would change everything. She recognized Chima's handwriting immediately, and her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside, she found words of understanding, not condemnation. Chima wrote that he had been doing his own research, learning about compulsive disorders and their treatment. He expressed regret for walking away instead of trying to understand. "Your condition doesn't define you," he wrote. "It's something that happened to you, not who you are. I'm sorry I couldn't see that on our wedding day." At the bottom of the letter was a phone number and a simple request: "Call me when you're ready." Sat with that letter for days, reading it over and over until the paper grew soft at the creases. With her therapist's encouragement, she finally picked up the phone. Their first conversation was awkward, filled with long pauses and unsaid words, but it was a beginning. They agreed to meet at their old cafe, the place where coffee had first brought them together. This time there were no accidents, just two people facing each other across a small table, ready to rebuild what had been broken. Chima listened as explained her journey through therapy, her struggles, and her progress. His eyes, once filled with hurt, now showed only compassion. "I want to be part of your healing," he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "If you let me." Meanwhile, Ken had been fighting her own battles with guilt, watching genuine efforts to heal. Seeing the town slowly embrace her return to normal life made Ken realize the magnitude of her betrayal. One rainy afternoon, she appeared at door, tears mixing with raindrops on her face. "I was jealous," Ken confessed. "You had everything I wanted, and I couldn't see past my own pain to understand yours." Forgiveness, though tempered with caution, showed a grace Ken knew she didn't deserve. 6 months later, and Chima stood before the altar again. This time, the only images projected were childhood photos and memories of their journey together. Uso, radiant in her chief bridesmaid's dress, beamed with pride as she watched her best friend finally claim her happiness. The ceremony was smaller than their first attempt, but infinitely more meaningful. When said "I do," her voice was strong, unshakable. She was no longer the woman hiding a shameful secret. She was someone who had faced her demons and learned to live with them. As they danced at their reception, Chima whispered in her ear, "I'm proud of you," and held him tighter, grateful for second chances and the kind of love that sees beyond the imperfections. Today, continues her therapy, supported by Chima's unwavering presence. Their story has become a beacon of hope in UMO, proving that with understanding, acceptance, and proper help, even the deepest wounds can heal. And while Ken remains on the periphery of their lives, a reminder of both betrayal and forgiveness, Yuso stands firmly by their side, as steady and true as always. Om's story transcends a simple tale of romance and betrayal. It delves deep into the shadows where medical stigma silences sufferers, where secrets corrode the soul, and where true healing begins with acceptance. In the quiet town of UMO, her struggle illuminated the dark corners many prefer to ignore, showing how mental health conditions can imprison even the most seemingly perfect lives. From the age of 15, carried her condition like chains, each day a battle against urges she couldn't control. The shame of her compulsion drove her deeper into secrecy, creating a cycle that only intensified her suffering. Her beauty became both a blessing and a curse, a perfect facade hiding the storms within. This intersection of medical stigma and societal expectations prevented her from seeking the help she desperately needed, illustrating how untreated conditions can devastate lives. The contrast between her two closest friends painted a stark picture of true versus false friendship. Uso represented unwavering support, standing beside through her darkest moments without judgment. Ken, consumed by jealousy, showed how friendship corrupted by envy can turn into the deadliest weapon. Yet even in Ken's betrayal, the story revealed the transformative power of forgiveness, not as a gift to the betrayer, but as freedom for the betrayed. Love emerged as both catalyst and healer in Yu's journey. Chima's initial reaction to her secret reflected society's knee-jerk judgment, but his return demonstrated the deeper understanding that true love requires. His acceptance of Om's condition, coupled with his support of her treatment, showed how love can bridge the gap between judgment and understanding. The burden of secrets weighed heavily throughout the narrative. Om's attempts to hide her condition only intensified her suffering, while the truth, though initially devastating when revealed, ultimately paved the way for her healing. The public exposure of her secret, though traumatic, forced her to confront her condition and seek the professional help she had long needed. Perhaps the most profound lesson emerged through Om's journey to self-acceptance. Only when she stopped viewing her condition as a moral failing and began treating it as a medical issue did true healing become possible. Her story teaches us that some secrets are too heavy to carry alone, that seeking help is not weakness but strength, and that healing often begins with the courage to face our truths. The power of forgiveness revealed itself in unexpected ways, not just in Om's forgiveness of Ken's betrayal, but in her learning to forgive herself. This self-forgiveness, combined with professional help and genuine support, created the foundation for lasting healing. Om's journey from shame to acceptance, from secrecy to honesty, and from isolation to supported healing serves as a powerful reminder that no condition defines us, that true friends stand by us through our darkest moments, and that, with proper help and understanding, even the deepest wounds can heal. Her story echoes the universal truth that it's not our struggles that define us, but how we face them and who we choose to become despite them.